Have you ever noticed how some people navigate chaotic situations with an almost unnerving calm, make difficult decisions without hesitation, and never seem to be caught off guard? While you're paralyzed by 1,000 contradictory options, consumed by doubt, or manipulated by artificial urgencies, they cut through the noise like a sharp blade through paper. The difference isn't intelligence, luck, or privilege. The difference is clarity, and most people live their entire lives without ever developing it, because they confuse clarity with knowledge. You think you need more information, more courses, more advice from gurus. But here's the truth: every new voice that enters your head is diluting your ability to think for yourself until you become a sophisticated parrot, repeating other people's brilliant ideas without ever developing wisdom of your own. While you're waiting to be 100% certain before acting, others have already made the imperfect decision, adjusted along the way, and are now miles ahead. While you're being manipulated by anyone creating artificial urgency, people with clarity simply ask, "Who benefits if I act quickly?" and dismantle the manipulation in seconds. What I'm going to show you today goes against everything you've learned about thinking carefully before acting. Prepare to discover why waiting for certainty is fear's most sophisticated excuse, why neutrality is cowardice in disguise, and how people who seem prophetic are just reading obvious patterns that you ignore because you're too busy reacting to chaos. In the next few minutes, you'll learn exactly how to develop the kind of clarity that transforms you from someone who is pushed around by circumstances to someone who consciously manipulates them. Most people operate under a dangerous illusion. They believe they make rational decisions based on logic and careful analysis, but the brutal truth is that they first decide emotionally and then fabricate a convincing logical narrative to justify what they've already chosen to feel. It's like building a house backward. You put up the decorations first and then try to fit the foundation around them. Modern neuroscience has proven that decisions are processed in the emotional regions of the brain, milliseconds before the logical regions are activated, meaning that their rational analysis is often just a sophisticated rationalization of an emotional impulse. When someone says, "I thought about it a lot and concluded that," what really happened was they felt something intensely and then constructed an intellectual argument to justify that feeling. This inversion of emotion in reason is responsible for virtually every bad decision you've ever made in your life. True clarity begins with a radical reversal of this dynamic. You need to identify your true goal first, before allowing feelings to cloud your decision-making process. It's like programming a GPS. You don't set destinations based on how you're feeling in that moment. You define where you really need to go and then follow those directions, even when your feelings woo. LD prefer a different route. People with genuine clarity can separate what I want to achieve from how I feel about achieving it, and this separation creates a devastating strategic advantage. They can make difficult choices without being paralyzed by emotional discomfort because they understand that feelings are temporary data, not permanent commands. It's the difference between being dictated by your emotions versus consulting them as one of several available sources of information. In any important discussion or negotiation, there's one question that separates amateurs from strategists. Amateurs ask, "How do I feel about this?" while strategists ask, "What best protects my position in this situation?" Imagine being in a salary negotiation where your boss made an offer that emotionally upsets you because it seems insulting. The emotional response would be to react defensively, perhaps impulsively, except just to end the discomfort, or explode in indignation that burns bridges. The strategic response would be to pause, completely ignore the feeling of offense, and ask, "What move here maximizes my negotiating power and brings me closer to the outcome I truly want?" This shift in perspective from emotional reactivity to calculated strategy transforms you from someone who is tossed around by circumstances to someone who manipulates them. Analysis paralysis is one of the most destructive epidemics of the digital age. People obsessively consume information, thinking it makes them more prepared, but in reality, they're creating a mental chaos that makes any decisive action impossible. You open social media and are bombarded by dozens of contradictory gurus, each with the ultimate answer that magically solves all your problems. One expert tells you to do X, another assures you Y is the way to go, and a third swears they're both wrong and Z is the only true solution. This constant barrage of opinions doesn't make you more informed, it leaves you confused, insecure, and unable to trust your own judgment. It's like trying to listen to an orchestra, where all the musicians are playing different songs at once. The result isn't sophisticated harmony. It's just deafening noise that prevents any real clarity. There's a fundamental principle that people with genuine clarity instinctively understand. Every new voice you allow into your head dilutes the power of your own inner voice, until you can no longer distinguish between what you truly think and what you've absorbed from others. It's like diluting pure paint. The more water you add, the weaker and duller it becomes. When you're constantly consuming opinions, theories, frameworks, and methodologies from hundreds of different sources, you essentially outsource your ability to think independently. You stop developing your own conclusions based on direct experience and start operating like a sophisticated parrot, repeating other people's brilliant ideas without ever developing genuine wisdom of your own. The cruel irony is that the more informed you try to be, the less decision-making power you actually possess. Before absorbing any new information, be it an article, a video, a podcast, or someone's advice, there's a devastatingly effective filter question that should become your automatic reflex. Does this change my next concrete action, or is it just intellectual entertainment disguised as productivity? Most of the content we consume fails this test spectacularly. That video about 10 habits of successful people is interesting, but will it change what you do tomorrow morning? That endless Twitter thread about sophisticated political theory is stimulating, but will it somehow alter your practical decisions in the coming days? If the honest answer is no, then you're just procrastinating under the guise of productivity, filling your mind with noise that will further dilute your clarity about what truly matters for your specific goals. Waiting for absolute certainty before acting is one of the most sophisticated excuses. Fear invents to keep you paralyzed, and most people fall into this trap, thinking they're being prudent or strategic. The brutal truth is that complete certainty only exists in retrospect, after you've already made the decision and dealt with the consequences. While you're sitting there analyzing every possible variable, calculating every conceivable risk, and waiting for the perfect moment to act, others have already made the imperfect decision, learned from the results, adjusted their course, and are now 3 steps ahead of you. It's like waiting for all the ocean waves to stop before learning to surf. You'll die on the beach, waiting for conditions that will never exist. Those who act first don't necessarily have more information. They have more courage to operate under uncertainty. True clarity doesn't come from endless contemplation sitting in a chair pondering every possibility. It emerges from movement, from action, from direct experimentation with reality. It's like learning to ride a bike. You can study physics, read manuals, and watch educational videos for months, but you'll only truly understand balance when you fall a few times trying to pedal. Every action you take, even if wrong, gives you precious feedback that no amount of theoretical analysis could provide. You discover that the strategy that seemed brilliant on paper doesn't work in practice, or that the approach that made you nervous is surprisingly effective. This action feedback adjustment loop is where true strategic intelligence resides, not the analysis paralysis that most people mistake for wisdom. Neutrality is not a wise and balanced position, as many believe. It's simply fear disguised as prudence. And this mask is especially deceiving to those who wear it. When you refuse to take a position because you want to evaluate further or consider all angles, what you're really saying is, I'm so afraid of being wrong or facing consequences that I prefer the illusory safety of not deciding at all. But here's the problem: not deciding is already a decision, and often the worst possible one, because you waste the most valuable resource you have: time. People with genuine clarity understand that it's better to decide before you're 100% comfortable and adjust course if necessary, than to wait for comfort that never arrives. While opportunities evaporate and problems pile up around you waiting for leadership you refuse to exercise. Artificial urgency is a manipulator's favorite tool when someone insists you need to decide now, that the opportunity will disappear, that there's no time to think. This pressure almost always reveals someone benefiting from your hasty, ill-considered decision. It's like a magician who needs you to not pay close attention to their hand movements. The faster they get you to focus in one place, the easier it is to trick you in another. Salespeople use this constantly. This offer expires today. Only 3 units left. Other people are interested right now. What they're really saying is, if you stop to think rationally, you'll realize you don't need this. So I need you to decide emotionally before reason intervenes. People with genuine clarity recognize this pattern instantly and respond with the thing manipulators fear most: deliberate calm and direct questions about who really wins if you act without thinking. There's a question that works like an X-ray to reveal hidden agendas in any situation. Where someone is pressuring you, who benefits if I act quickly? And who benefits if I take my time to think? This simple shift in perspective dismantles virtually all manipulation, because it forces you to step outside your own anxiety and examine the real power dynamics of the situation. When your boss urgently needs you to take on an extra project, without time to negotiate compensation, who wins? When a romantic relationship requires you to commit now or never, who benefits from your pressured decision? When a can't-miss investment requires immediate cash, who profits from your lack of diligence? In most cases, you'll discover that urgency serves someone else's interests, not yours, and that discovery alone empowers you to resist the pressure and demand the time necessary to make an informed decision. Scenario reversal is a devastatingly effective technique for developing clarity around important decisions. You don't just ask, what happens if I act? But also, and perhaps more importantly, what happens if I don't act? Most people are so focused on the risks of action that they completely ignore the risks of inaction. And this cognitive bias can be catastrophic. Yes, confronting that toxic colleague might create temporary discomfort, but if you don't, how much longer will you waste emotional energy being sabotaged? Yes, asking for that raise might give you an awkward no, but if you don't, how many years will you work undervalued while less qualified colleagues earn more? Because they had the courage to negotiate. When you honestly analyze both scenarios, action and inaction, you often discover that the real risk lies in doing nothing, not in doing something imperfect. When you develop genuine clarity, something fascinating happens to your communication. You automatically speak less, but each word that leaves your mouth carries a weight and precision that most people never achieve. It's like the difference between a machine gun firing hundreds of bullets randomly and a sniper patiently waiting for the exact moment to land a single, accurate shot. Confused people need to talk too much because they're trying to figure out what they really think through their own verbiage, using other people as sounding boards to process half-formed thoughts. People with clarity have already processed internally, distilled complexity into essence. And when they finally speak, it's not to figure out what they think, it's to communicate with surgical precision what they already know. This verbal economy isn't shyness or a lack of confidence. It's the opposite. It's confidence so solid it doesn't need a necessary embellishment. Criticism, provocations, and artificial urgency situations that make most people react impulsively become just background noise when you have true clarity about who you are and what you're building. It's like being in a noisy room but wearing noise-canceling headphones. You hear everything but consciously choose what deserves your attention and energy. When someone criticizes you in front of others, people without clarity go into panic mode, desperately try to defend themselves or emotionally counterattack. You, with developed clarity, simply observe in silence, assess whether there's any useful truth in the criticism, and respond or don't respond based on strategy, not bruised ego. This control over your own reactions creates a magnetic presence, because people instinctively sense that you can't be easily manipulated, provoked, or thrown off balance. And that stability is extremely rare and valuable. People with developed clarity are often described as prophetic or visionary, but there's nothing mystical or magical going on. They're simply reading obvious patterns that most people ignore because they're too busy reacting emotionally to the superficial chaos. It's like watching a chess game. Beginners only see the pieces on the board. Masters see 5 moves ahead because they recognize patterns they've seen 1,000 times before. When you develop clarity, You stop being distracted by the drama of the moment and begin to recognize the underlying structures that generate predictable outcomes. You see that James always sabotages projects when he feels threatened. That Megan always creates false urgency when she wants control. That Brian always publicly agrees but then acts differently. These observations don't make you cynical. They make you realistic, and this calibrated realism allows you to navigate complex situations with an ease that seems otherworldly to someone still lost in their own emotional chaos. Now you have access to something most people will never develop: the understanding that clarity isn't a state you achieve, but a skill you train daily, through conscious decisions about what you allow into your mind and how you respond to the chaos around you. But having this information is useless if you don't have the courage to apply it. When it really matters, when your emotions are screaming one thing, when everyone is pressuring you to do something else, and when the most comfortable option is simply to wait a little longer. So answer me with complete honesty. Are you prepared to start brutally filtering the voices that bombard you every day? Can you accept that 90% of the content you consume is merely diluting your ability to think clearly, rather than strengthening it? Do you have the courage to make decisions before you're 100% comfortable and adjust along the way, rather than waiting for certainty that will never come? And most crucially, are you willing to resist the artificial urgency that manipulators use against you, even when it means being called slow or indecisive? Because here's the brutal reality: every day you put off developing this clarity is another day being pushed around by unprocessed emotions, manipulated by people who understand your weaknesses better than you do, and paralyzed by an excessive information that makes you feel prepared when in reality, you're just procrastinating under the guise of productivity. The difference between people who transform their lives and those who continue to be tossed around by circumstances lies in a simple choice: stop seeking more information and start developing more clarity about what to do with the information you already have. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.